Donald Trump has appeared in public in Milwaukee Republican National Convention with bandage on his right ear. Good morning. Welcome to Amir Shakil 5858. I am Amir Budnam. I am thankful to all international news resources and my team. I am also thankful to all American, European, Canadian, Australian, Asian, African channels and AP, AFP and Reuters news agencies. Now watch the channels. Rather, headlines. He's been nominated by Republican Party for president. Also, J.D. Vance has been nominated as vice president. A senator from Ohio, 40 years old. Classified documents case against Trump has been dismissed by the judge. Biden appealed to the Americans to condemn violence. Americans are still in shock after assassination attempt on Donald Trump. Chairman of security agency in America is under scrutiny. Israeli bombing on school in Gaza killed 15 people. Hamas says Israel is avoiding negotiations. Chaos in Florida during America Copa final. Now watch the channels.
Good evening. I'm Jeff Bennett.
And I'm Amna Nawaz here at the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee. On the NewsHour tonight.
Senator J.D. Vance has the overwhelming support of this convention to be the next Vice President of the United States.
Donald Trump picks Ohio Senator J.D. Vance to be his running mate as the GOP charts its path forward days after the assassination attempt on the former president.
A federal judge in Florida dismisses Mr. Trump's classified documents case, likely setting up a high-stakes appeal.
And after calling on Americans to reject political violence, how President Biden is adjusting his own campaign.
Your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to the NewsHour. We are here at the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee, where Ohio Senator J.D. Vance has been tapped as the vice presidential nominee just days after a failed assassination attempt on Donald Trump, and as Republicans are cheering the sudden dismissal of the classified documents case against the former president.
Quite a busy day in the 2024 presidential campaign. Our Lisa Desjardins is here with us in the middle of it all from the convention floor.
Just 2 days. Thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome.
And after a whirlwind of political news, we turn now to the day's other headlines. Stephanie Tsai is in Washington and has those stories.
Thanks, Amna and Jeff. Houston's main utility company says the majority of power outages in the city should be fixed by Wednesday. That news comes amid growing pressure on CenterPoint Energy as more than 200,000 customers remain without power a week after Hurricane Beryl swept through the area. The Texas Public Utility Commission has launched an investigation into CenterPoint's storm preparedness a day after Governor Greg Abbott demanded, quote, specific actions to address power outages and reduce the possibility that power will be lost during a severe weather event. Beryl also left its mark thousands of miles away in Vermont. Officials there are seeking disaster assistance from FEMA after flooding knocked out bridges and washed out roads. In the Middle East, Israel has carried out new attacks on Gaza following a weekend of devastating airstrikes. Today in Deir al-Bala in central Gaza, local officials say an Israeli attack killed 3 members of the same family, including a child. A State Department spokesperson said today that Secretary Blinken expressed concern over civilian casualties in a meeting with Israeli officials.
We have seen civilian casualties come down from the high points of the conflict and even from where they were, say, 6 weeks, 2 months ago, but they still remain unacceptably high. We continue to see far too many civilians killed in this conflict. We want to see civilian casualties completely ended.
Blinken also spoke with Israeli officials today about ongoing talks toward a ceasefire deal with Hamas. During the meeting, Israel said it is still committed to reaching an agreement. Hamas also said today the ceasefire talks are continuing, but accused Israel of trying to derail progress with its ongoing attacks in Gaza. In Ukraine, President Volodymyr Zelensky says he aims to hold a second international peace summit, and he wants Russia to attend. At last month's gathering in Switzerland, Russia was absent. In his first news conference since visiting the U.S. last week, Zelensky also said he was ready to work with Donald Trump if the former president wins November's election. And he made an urgent plea for more military aid.
From the point of view of the structure of our air defense, to completely cover Ukraine, according to our military, we need 25 Patriot systems. This is in order to completely close the sky of Ukraine.
Separately, a Moscow court convicted U.S. journalist Masha Gessen in absentia today on charges of spreading lies about the Russian military. Gessen was sentenced to 8 years in prison. The Moscow-born author is the latest American target of Russia's crackdown on dissent. Gessen is a prominent critic of Vladimir Putin, who lives outside Russia and is unlikely to face actual imprisonment. Gambia's parliament voted today to uphold a ban on female genital cutting. Lawmakers rejected a push by the country's religious conservatives who had argued that the practice is, quote, one of the virtues of Islam. Gambia would have been the first country to reverse such a ban. According to the UN, more than 50% of women there between the ages of 15 and 49 have undergone the procedure. Also called female genital mutilation, the practice can cause serious bleeding, death, and childbirth complications, but remains widespread in parts of Africa. Police in Miami say they arrested 27 people and ejected 55 others amid chaotic scenes at the Copa America final last night in Florida. The showdown between Argentina and Colombia was delayed multiple times after fans tried to force their way into the stadium, some without tickets. A few even attempted scaling the walls to gain entry. Security officials tried to control the gates, leading to tense scenes with some fans forcing their way in. The head of Colombia's Soccer Federation and his son were among those arrested. On Wall Street today, stocks ended higher after the Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell said there has been progress on taming inflation. The Dow Jones Industrial Average added more than 200 points to close at an all-time high. The Nasdaq tacked on 75 points, ending just shy of its own record. And the S&P 500 also ended higher to start the week. Now let's go back to Jeff and Amna in Milwaukee.
As Donald Trump turned his head just slightly, that the bullet missed him just enough.
Progress on taming inflation. The Dow Jones Industrial Average added more than 200 points to close at an all-time high. The Nasdaq tacked on 75 points, ending just shy of its own record. And the S&P 500 also ended higher to start the week. Now let's go back to Jeff and Amna in Milwaukee at the Republican National.
President Trump.
Tonight, the breaking news from the opening day of the Republican National Convention.
President Donald J. Trump has been selected as the Republican Party nominee for President of the United States.
The highly anticipated announcement of a running mate who is J.D. Vance. How he went from calling Donald Trump cultural heroine to his pick for vice president.
I think he's lived the epitome of the American dream.
There he is.
Plus, the new video of people at the Trump rally Saturday warning police of a man with a gun. And case dismissed. The surprise news about the classified documents charges. A special edition of the CBS Evening News from Milwaukee starts now.
Tonight, breaking news across the political world. Donald Trump once again officially nominated for president by the Republican Party after surviving an assassination attempt at a packed political rally. Tonight, announcing his running mate with a convention already underway. It comes as President Biden decries political violence, but not backing down in his characterization of former President Trump. In my exclusive interview, we discuss Mr. Biden's conversation with Mr. Trump, why he regrets using the word bullseye, but why he says people should focus on the words of his political opponent. Plus, our new reporting on the investigation into the assassination attempt in Pennsylvania. The video emerging of the shooter minutes before the deadly assault. The weapons cache found at his family's home as a portrait emerges of who he was and the victims of the latest act of political violence. Plus, from hillbilly elegy to vice presidential nominee, the nation meets Senator J.D. Vance, his meteoric rise despite past criticism of Mr. Trump. Case dismissed, the political uproar after a Trump-appointed federal judge tosses the classified documents case against the Republican nominee, where the case heads next. And this American moment, with red-hot rhetoric soaring in a presidential election, what can be done to tone things down?
This is NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
According to a local Pittsburgh station, WPXI 11, sometime before 5:45 p.m., a law enforcement officer spotted a suspicious person. That was a Thomas Matthew Crooks on the ground. So he took a photo of him and he called it in. Another officer checked the grounds but didn't find him. Then someone on Beaver County's emergency services team saw a suspicious man on the roof and took a photo of him. Well, shockingly, between the time the second photo was taken and when shots were fired from the roof, 26 minutes had elapsed. 26 minutes. Joining me now, Congressman Corey Mills of Florida. He was an Army sniper, also coordinated protective details for numerous high-profile people, including then Vice President Biden and First Lady Laura Bush. Also with me, Congressman Ronnie Jackson of Texas, who spent a lot of time with President Trump since the attempted assassination. Congressman Mills, your reaction to what you just heard, 26 minutes.
Well, look, I wasn't an actual Army sniper. What I did was I ran a counter-sniper team for the State Department, DSS, and other agencies. And I can tell you, 26 minutes is a lifetime. When you're talking 160 yards, I want to put this into understanding. I can teach the average American in 5 minutes how to make a 160-yard shot with an MOA of 1. Now, when I say MOA of 1, what that means is that your basic production rifle that comes off the line, not a hand-built sniper rifle, holds a 1-inch grouping at 100. That means that at 160 yards, you're talking 1.6 inches grouping in a 3 to 6 round burst. The fact that this is about milliseconds and millimeters that changes this from being an attempt and an assassination should really talk about the divine intervention that has occurred here. But I will be honest with you, as I continue to learn more about the facts, the more I feel that this is intent and the more that I think that a J13 commission needs to go forward. We need to understand the incitement of violence. If the J6 committee was enough to have go home peaceful to be able to do it, we need to start looking into the real. And I don't trust the FBI and others to do this investigation. I think it needs to come to the House.
Congressman Jackson, there is a lot of pushing and pulling on Capitol Hill. This committee wants this piece of it. Another committee wants this piece of it. Do you not agree with me? There needs to be one overarching special committee and outside counsel that is impeccably trustworthy to direct this investigation. Otherwise, there are going to be leaks, and this thing is going to go on for, a year.
No, I agree 100%. Maybe we should put a select committee together, pick the most powerful members from the other committees, stick them on that committee. We've done that in the past. I really.
Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. We're broadcasting from Milwaukee. The FBI is attempting to pin down a motive after the assassination attempt against former President Donald Trump Saturday. The shooting took place during a rally in Butler, Pennsylvania.
You want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
A bullet grazed Trump's right ear, leaving him bloodied. 50-year-old Corey Compatore, a volunteer firefighter and spectator, was killed as he attempted to protect his family from the gunfire. 2 others are in critical condition. Secret Service fatally shot the gunman, 20-year-old Thomas Matthew Crooks, moments after he fired. The Justice Department's investigating the shooting as an act of domestic terrorism. Investigators believe Crooks acted alone when he shot an AR-15 towards the rally stage from atop a nearby building just minutes into Trump's speech. Some attendees said they spotted the gunman climbing to the roof and attempted to get law enforcement to pay attention and intervene. Moments after a bullet grazed Trump's ear, a photographer from the Associated Press snapped a photo of a bloodied Trump raising his fist with an image of an American flag behind him. Many online commentators are speculating the incident and the image will help Donald Trump's election bid. President Joe Biden ordered a review of the rally's security. He addressed the nation from the Oval Office Sunday evening.
There's no place in America for this kind of violence, or for any violence ever. Period. No exceptions. We can't allow this violence to be normalized. You know, the political record in this country has gotten very heated. It's time to cool it down. We all have a responsibility to do that. Yes, we have deeply felt strong disagreements. The stakes in this election are enormously high.
Biden's team says it's pulling its television ads and pausing outgoing campaign communications following the shooting. This comes amidst mounting pressure for Biden to end his presidential campaign. 19 congressional Democrats have now called on Biden to step aside. Before the attack on Saturday, Biden was reportedly grilled on a call with centrist Democrats over his plans. The call was described to Axios as a disaster. The youth climate group Sunrise Movement publicly called on Biden to step aside Friday, saying the climate risk is too great. Another Trump presidency would cause catastrophic and irreversible damage to our climate, the group warned. Irreversible damage to our climate, the group warned. Meanwhile, Donald Trump arrived here in Milwaukee Sunday as the Republican National Convention kicks off. Thousands of Republicans are participating in the event where Trump will accept the nomination for president. On the eve of the RNC Sunday, dozens of people set up an unhoused encampment just minutes from Fiserv Forum, where the RNC is underway to protest policies that have exacerbated poverty and a housing crisis nation.
On this Monday night, forging ahead. Days after dodging an assassination attempt, Donald Trump officially becomes the Republicans' presidential nominee and announces his pick for VP. The impact on his campaign, plus new information on the investigation into the shooting. And we hear from witnesses. The torrent of online threats against Canadian politicians.
You're out in public and you're kind of always looking over your shoulders.
We get access to government documents, what they reveal about the threat. Chaos at the Copa America final. Can North America cope with what's coming in the 2026 World Cup? Plus, going for green, the goal to make the Paris Olympics as sustainable as possible.
Global National with Donna.
Hey, Roger. Thanks for having me back. I am here with top pollster and political analyst Frank Luntz. Frank, I'm so happy to see you in person. You have been one of the most informative sources for kind of trying to understand the support for President Trump and where Republicans and Democrats are at, Americans writ large. Let me start off on the pick for J.D. Vance. What's your initial take on who it might appeal to and who it might not?
It's going to be Trump's legacy. He now has a successor. So for those who like Donald Trump, they have a real Donald Trump Jr. to take the movement forward. For those who don't like Trump, it's frightening for them that this could be 12 more years of Trump and Trump's policies. It's very smart to go to the Midwest. Those are the only states that are in jeopardy, but it doesn't add diversity to the ticket. In fact, it reinforces the Trump component of the Republican Party.
So in your mind, is that strategically a smart thing to do, or might it be a vulnerability in the long run? Like, do vice presidential picks strategically, can they make a difference?
Yes, they can make a difference, but usually they make a bad difference. It's actually, they end up costing the candidate votes rather than performing. He's a good debater. He's very smart. He's very quick. Canadians will appreciate his Midwestern demeanor. His politics are Donald Trump's politics. Either you like him or you don't. I don't think he adds. I don't think he detracts. And I think he'll be a good opponent for the vice president in the debate that they probably will have.
Why do you think Trump selected him? I was listening to some of the punditry in anticipation of who he picks, and many people were saying, oh, it could, this could be someone who's such a star that it would outshine Donald Trump, and that might mean that he wouldn't want to choose him. Why do you think he thought this was the right person to be on the ticket with him?
Because J.D. Vance agrees with Donald Trump on the vast majority of issues, and Donald Trump truly does not like to be challenged. No matter what he says, he tends to surround himself with people who share the same point of view.
Tonight, just 2 days after a bullet grazed their leader, Republican delegates make it official. He's their choice.
President Donald J. Trump has been selected as the Republican Party nominee for President of the United States.
Trump is set to speak in acceptance on Thursday. But we now know the name of his running mate. Ohio Senator J.D. Vance gets the nod for VP.
It seems to be a choice that reinforces the president's MAGA identity.
We've got new eyewitness accounts of the Trump assassination attempt.
We got relatively close to the stage.
Everybody's excited to be there.
And another interview from the current president.
How do you talk about the threat to democracy, which is real, when a president says things like he says?
Joe Biden doesn't back away from his criticism of Trump.
From CBC News, this is The National with Chief Correspondent Adrienne Arsenault.
Thanks for joining us.
We continue here with the news tonight. There are fast-moving developments after the assassination attempt tonight. Remarkable new images here. The alleged gunman seen climbing to the roof just minutes before opening fire at that rally. You can actually hear people in the crowd yelling to an officer, pointing him out. And now we learn that law enforcement was actually using that building as a staging area, and how the gunman climbed onto the roof, the wall outside that building. And ABC's Pierre Thomas tonight with the exclusive interview with the head of the Secret Service and what she's saying now.
Stunning new video tonight showing the moment Donald Trump's would-be assassin climbed onto the roof of that building just 2 minutes before he opened fire.
Yeah, look, there he is.
You can hear bystanders desperately trying to alert police. Authorities now using that video as part of the investigation. And tonight, ABC News has learned that heavily armed local police were stationed inside that building and missed Thomas Crooks climbing up the outside of the building to the roof. The same building was being used as a staging area for local police, according to 2 law enforcement officials. And Butler Township officials are confirming ABC News' reporting that a local police officer climbed up the roof and confronted Brooks moments before the shooting.
The officer grabbed hold of the edge of the building, pulled himself up to be able to look, and according to what he's told me, shooter turned, rifle was pointed at the officer. The officer, defensive move, kind of ducked, fell, lost his grip on the building.
Investigators tonight trying to determine whether roof access had been properly locked down. The shooter climbing seemingly unimpeded, about 400 feet from the stage, with a direct line of sight on the former president.
Take a look at what happened.
Washington lawmakers demanding answers, calling on the Secret Service director to appear before Congress. We sat down with Director Kim Cheadle today for an exclusive interview.
What was your reaction when you saw the events unfold on Saturday?
Shock, and then concern, obviously, for the former president. This is an event that should have never happened.
Who is most responsible for this happening?
What I would say is that the Secret Service is responsible for the protection of the former president.
So the buck stops with you?
The buck stops with me. I am the director of the Secret Service. It was unacceptable, and it's something that shouldn't happen again.
The President and Homeland Security Secretary said today they had 100% confidence in you, but there are some members of Congress calling on you to resign.
I appreciate the Secretary's comments, and we're going to continue to be transparent and communicate with people.
You plan to stay on, absolutely.
I do plan to stay on.
Director Cheadle says she will not wait on an independent review of the security failure. She says she plans to make immediate changes. We learned today she's already expanded the tactical or SWAT support for former President Trump. David?
Pierre for it.
Matt Hunt, one of the 200 France 24 correspondents around the world.
Hello, you're watching Daybreak here on France 24. I'm Haxi Miles-Belkin. These are today's headlines. Less than 48 hours after surviving an assassination attempt, Donald Trump greets supporters at the Republican National Convention, his injured ear in a bandage. Trump later appearing next to his freshly announced running mate, J.D. Vance, the US's second youngest senator who once called Trump a moral disaster. The first French cabinet meeting after seismic legislative elections could see Prime Minister Gabriel Attal try once again to hand in his resignation. That amid ongoing infighting within the winning left-wing coalition, still no agreement on a prime minister. And with just 10 days to go before the Olympics opening ceremony here in Paris, all eyes will be, of course, on sporting prowess. But as Diptyque Laurent explains later in our press review today, Paris 2024 is also about showcasing the best of French gastronomy.
Will be decided.
There's speculation that French Prime Minister Gabriel Attal could use today's first cabinet meeting after legislative elections to offer his resignation once again. If accepted, he would nonetheless likely stay on to manage day-to-day affairs until a replacement can be agreed upon. The left-wing coalition that won the most seats in those recent elections is still struggling to agree on a prime minister, with the coalition's largest party, France Unbowed, La France Insoumise, most recently accusing the socialists of, quote, unacceptable methods in vetoing suggestions. Catherine Keder-Clifford reports on a tumultuous week in French politics.
Will this coming week bring political clarity to France's horizon? Government now looks set to be delayed until the end of August.
A look now at some other world news stories we're covering today here on France 24. Rwanda's longtime president Paul Kagame looks poised to extend his grip on power by another 5 years. Partial results after Monday's election indicating that Kagame secured 99.15% of the vote. Only 2 candidates had been authorised to run against him. Soon after those partial results were announced, Kagame addressing the nation to thank Rwandans for their trust. The man suspected of killing and dismembering the bodies of at least 9 women found in a Nairobi quarry is expected to appear in court this Tuesday. Investigators say that the 33-year-old man, arrested on Monday, has confessed to killing 42 women, including his wife, since 2022. They did not provide evidence to support that claim. And police in Oman say that a shooting in a mosque in the Omani capital has killed 4 people and wounded others. Police gave no potential motive and no indication of who was suspected of carrying out that attack. The US Embassy in Oman issuing a warning for Americans to stay away from the site of the attack in Muscat's Wadi Kabir neighborhood. Well, I'm joined in the studio now by Diptyque Laurent for a look through the international papers today. Trump has picked a Republican running mate, as we mentioned a little earlier, and he was garnering a lot of attention in the press today. Let's talk Olympic Games press view. We got there in the end.
Yes.
Thank you very much. That's all we have time for right now. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned. More news coming up in 15 minutes' time here on France 24.
Vote counting has begun in Rwanda following the closure of polling stations on Monday in a presidential election poised to extend President Paul Kagame's long tenure. Kagame, who has led the country since 1994, faced minimal opposition from Frank Habineza of the Democratic Green Party and independent candidate Philippe Mpayimana, who he overwhelmingly defeated in 2017. Election authorities reported that 9.5 million Rwandans are registered to vote out of a population of 14 million. Provisional results are expected later on Monday. Kagame, who became president in 2000, has been both criticized as an authoritarian and lauded for Rwanda's growth post-genocide. In 2015, a referendum allowed him to potentially stay in power until 2034. The election occurred amid regional insecurity, particularly involving M23 rebels in eastern Congo, with allegations of Rwanda's support. Right groups have also raised concerns about Rwanda's restrictions on human rights and freedoms. Final results of both presidential and parliamentary elections are expected on July 27.
Louisa Hanoun of the Algerian Workers' Party cited what she termed as unfair conditions for quitting the presidential race. The announcement comes 2 days after President Abdelmadjid Tebboune said he would seek re-election. In a Facebook post on Saturday, Hanoun said that the legal framework had been skewed to prevent opponents of Tebboune from running. A veteran of the Algerian opposition, Hanoun ran for president in 2004, 2009 and 2014. In 2019, during mass protests against President Abdelaziz Bouteflika, Hanoun was arrested on accusations of treason. She was charged with plotting against the state and the army before being released in February of 2020. In January 2021, Hanoun was acquitted of the charges. In power since 2019, Tebboune is the favorite in the election. The 78-year-old won the last election, marked by a low turnout with 58% of the vote. Tebboune served as prime minister under Bouteflika.
Global childhood immunization coverage totaled in 2023, leaving 2.7 million additional children un- and under-vaccinated compared to pre-pandemic levels in 2019, according to the data recently published by the World Health Organization and UNICEF. The latest WHO and UNICEF estimates of national immunization coverage, which provide the world's largest and most comprehensive data set on immunization trends for vaccinations against 14 diseases, underscore the need for ongoing catch-up, recovery, and system strengthening efforts. According to the findings, the number of children who received 3 doses of vaccine against diphtheria, tetanus, and pertussis in 2023, a key marker for global immunization coverage, stalled at 84%. In 2023, only 83% of children worldwide received their first dose of measles vaccine through routine health services, while the number of children receiving their second dose modestly increased from the previous year, reaching 74% of children.
England fans have been left disappointed after their national team fell short in their second successive European Championships final. Spain defeated England 2-1 on Sunday night to win Euro 2024 in Berlin. English fans watched in dismay as the Spaniards scored the winning goal just 4 minutes from time.
Heartbroken. Like, we have to be honest as well, like, they played much better than us. We fell on the back foot, of course, but getting a goal back to feel like something's going to happen gives you a little bit of hope, doesn't it? And then you get devastated like that in the last, 5 minutes before the end of the game? Yeah, heartbreaking.
England last lost in the finals to Italy at Euro 2020. This time, hope was ignited when Cole Palmer equalised for England after coming on for a substitute. But those hopes were dashed when Mikel Oyarzabal scored Spain's second goal. It is the Spaniards' third European Championship title in 16 years. Olympic torchbearers ran down the Champs-Élysées on Monday in one of the last legs of the relay ahead of Paris 2024. Pastry chef Nina Metayer and singer Amir Haddad stood for a torch kiss in front of the Arc de Triomphe, one of the French capital's key landmarks. On Sunday, the torch made appearances at the Bastille Day military parade, before heading to Notre Dame Cathedral, the Sorbonne University and the Louvre. It was welcomed to the city by a can-can dance performed by dancers from the famous Parisian cabaret Le Moulin Rouge. The performance came after the inauguration of the cabaret's new windmill wings on July 5th, after the sales collapse earlier this year. The flame will return to Paris for the Olympics opening ceremony on July 26th.
America is gone.
Retribution, a Four Corners special series. Monday, ABC and ABC iView.
Well, America's 45th president is on the runway, ready for his 2024 re-election campaign to take flight. And he's done it in true Donald Trump style, to rapturous applause when he entered the Republicans' National Convention, where his nomination has been put forward. Bandaged across the entire right ear, clipped by a bullet graze only 3 days ago, Trump listened but didn't speak publicly as he awaits his acceptance. Now, by any measure, it's been a remarkable few days for the former president, who's now got a running mate for his race to Election Day in the first week of November. We'll bring you full analysis this Tuesday. We're live from Parliament House, recognising traditional custodians around the capital. I'm Greg Jennett. Welcome to Afternoon Briefing. Also this hour, we'll head to Paris, where Australia's putting in an effort to market this country for trade and tourism around the Olympic Games. The torch has arrived already in the French capital, and Assistant Minister Patrick Gorman is there representing the government in this pre-Games push. We'll find out what that's all about. And on another front, Afternoon Briefing will take you inside this country's only nuclear reactor that doubles as a low and intermediate waste storage centre. Matthew Doran's been inside the Lucas Heights facility in Sydney, and we'll see his report prepared for us a little later in the program. Now, in case you missed it, about 4 hours ago now, Donald Trump arrived to a grand reception at the...
Design. Perfect Match 3. Luxury transform. Dangling earrings. Real touch. Only natural diamonds. Mason jewelry.
This is Asia Now.
It's 2 p.m. in Singapore and Hong Kong, 11:30 in New Delhi and 1 o'clock in Jakarta. I'm Paul So. At this hour, Donald Trump makes his first public appearance at the Republican National Convention since the assassination attempt on him. He formally becomes the GOP's presidential candidate as Joe Biden dials down attacks on his rival. Top officials of China's Communist Party huddled in a key policy meeting to tackle the country's goals, especially economic ones, in a time of slow growth. At least 100 injured in Bangladesh after violent clashes between student groups. Thousands battle for hours in universities across the country over government job quotas.
Thank you for watching and privilege of your time. This is Amir Shakil 5858. I am Amir Woodman. Have a good life.